Hey everybody, Bennett for the Better Podcast, and it is the big summer preview from Games Workshop coming up this week. So I thought I'd put together a little video of what I think we can expect, but I guess more importantly, what I'm really hoping for. Now, if I have to forgive me for looking a bit shiny, it's only 8 a.m. in the morning, but it's still already like 27 degrees. So definitely got the big summer part of the preview bit right, haven't they? Okay, so over on the Games Workshop website, we've got this little jobbly wobbly here. So there is a video, and the video has some hints. And the way Games Workshop do this is they try and give us hints when they do these videos. So we're going to have a kind of look and talk about what some of the hints might mean and what we kind of had expected to be released anyway. So the big summer preview, Blood Bowl, is obviously the most important one here. But there are some really interesting products there. I think there's some really cool stuff that we are going to see here, which gets me a little bit excited at the moment, which is pretty cool. Okay, so Blood Bowl, Legions Imperialis, Necromunda, Kill Team, Warhammer the Old World, Warhammer Horus Heresy, Age of Sigmar, and Warhammer 40k. So there's quite a bit coming out here, which is quite cool to see. It is funny, in the video they even said, like, do we need more 40k? Not really, but let's do it anyway, which, I mean, kind of got to have some 40k releases, haven't they? Okie dokie, so let's start off with the most important one of all, Blood Bowl. Okay, so Blood Bowl. We had the new edition at the end of last year. We've had the High Elf team this year, but it's been, 4 or 5 months since we've had anything at all. And this is the first time now we're looking at this and we're seeing a Blood Bowl preview, and we don't have an obvious answer as to what's coming, right? They've done all of the Team of Legends, with High Elves dropping, with Tomb Kings dropping in the box set, with High Elves dropping afterwards. They've done all of the teams that were kind of floating around before. So when they introduced Bretonnians, they kind of brought Bretts back. So they've kind of completed it. Now, there's one team that is hanging out there that I do wonder if they'll do something with, and that is Slann. And this is utterly wish listing, because I don't think they're going to bring Slann back. But hear me out here. Okay, so Slann are space frogs, and they are super retro. They are super nostalgic. This is Rogue Trader, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, 3rd edition kind of stuff. Old school metal models. Frog people jumping around. Now, over time, they took the Slann and they made them fat frog people, fat frog wizards. Which, you know, I mean, middle age hits everybody, I guess. So, I think because they've had the Slann roster in Blood Bowl 2 in the way of Kislev, I think it's it's not an outside possibility that they could even bring Slann back in a similar way to the Kislev roster. They brought back Bretonnians from Blood Bowl 1, Blood Bowl 2. I could see them bringing Kislev back and doing a Slann roster, getting that kind of old school Rogue Trader thing. They brought the Zote back, and that's the same sort of era. So I can see them doing something with it. However, when we look at like the pantheon of Games Workshop things, you'll have to excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. When we look at the pantheon of Games Workshop land, there's a couple of things really missing. And that is the rest of the Chaos teams. And that's something that Brush Tithe has talked about a lot is could they bring back Slann, the Kislev roster, but do it in the theme of Slaanesh? So you get the pogo, the jumpy, the leapy, the long-legged stuff, and have it kind of wrapped up in a Chaos God theme. So actually, I think that's a really good shout. The thing that's also missing is Tzeentch. So there's 2 Chaos teams missing. There's the archetype of Slann missing. And that's even before you kind of look at some of the lore snippets. There was a Snake People team. There was a Pygmy team, I think. There was like a Dryad team. There's a lot of stuff in the lore they keep putting out in these Spike magazines. So they could do some really crazy stuff. Or they could just give us what we want, which is like a troll team or a squig team or a giant team, and just basically play in to what we've got now. And then you could even kind of go, oh, what about a rat ogre team? What about a different dwarf team or a different Skaven team? There's a huge amount of stuff they can do with it. But I think the thing that we are missing most of all, if you think about what they said on the video and where they went to with all of the bits and bobs, they said, and he's coming back. So the biggest thing we're missing, Tomb King star players, Bretonnian star players, and High Elf star players. So I do wonder if this is going to be some kind of star player conglomeration where we get Moranian and Ramtut and, oh, come on, the Green Knight for Bretonia, something like that. I can see that landing. I'd love a team, but I can see that landing, and I think that's pretty reasonable. Okay, so that is the Blood Bowl of the list done. So as we look across this, what else do we think is going to be pretty juicy? And Necromunda, well, in fact, the Kill Team, they said there's going to be a new box for Kill Team, and it was going to be off the scale. Now, given the most recent Kill Team releases have been about you taking your dudes and killing big dudes, like the Red Terror or Dreadnoughts and stuff like that, I think that's probably going to be some kind of like Kill Team for Knights or something that just kind of brings in even bigger models, but kind of designed for Kill Team, which I actually think is a really great bit of design space. I like the idea of Kill Team more than I like playing it because it's a very token intense game and that breaks the immersion for me. But, I mean, we can definitely see that. But the one on here that really takes my fancy is Necromunda. And what was it they said on the actual video? They said something along the lines of, and the new Necromunda box, which is like the most massive, it's the massive like spoiler they could give, right? So now it may not be the biggest spoiler because the last time we got a new Necromunda box, it was actually just Spirers versus Gene Stealers and an expansion to the game. So while the obvious thing to think of is, wow, they've not done a new Necromunda starter box for like 7 years, it's probably about time, and that is a possibility. There are definitely some other options, and there's some bits in Necromunda from the olden days that they've not brought back yet. Now, Rat Skins is one of them that I don't think they'll ever bring. I think they kind of replace them with the Ashwaste Nomads, which is a shame because I love the Rat Skins. But there's like the Scavies and the Rad Zombies. Imagine this. Now, it's a shame because they've already done the Necromunda Police in the way of the Palanite Enforcers. But if they could do Necromunda, but make it like a zombie horde theme. So there was this like necromancer in Necromunda back in the day, and he was like all about radiation zombies and things. That's something they haven't done yet. So you've got Spirers versus Gene Stealers. They could go away where the next Necromunda box is like a new gang versus zombies, which would be wicked because that would bring back some of the old Outlanders stuff into the game and just add something very, very, very different. However, it's just as likely that we get a new Orlok versus Goliath box because they are very much leaning into like second edition 1990s nostalgia at the moment, which let's not pretend it hits home. Okay, so talking about 1990s nostalgia and things hitting home, we've got the old world here. So we've talked about Blood Bowl, we've talked about Necromunda, we've talked very quickly about Kill Team. The Warhammer, the old world. Now, there's two things floating around. On the video, they dropped a thing saying something about someone with two heads. Now, there's a couple of different angles here. The most obvious one is Galrauk, who is a big demon dragon. Let's see if I can find a picture of him, because Galrauk was a fantastic model back in the day. Not very good now. This was metal, and this is a chariot base back in the day, right? This was before most models were big, chunky boys. This lad had a 100 by 50 mil base. I don't think I ever picked this model up. And that's not just because I was a kid and probably couldn't afford it, but mostly because it was made of metal and I probably wouldn't have been able to pick it up. And I certainly wouldn't have been able to pin it. So it is possible that when they talk about two-headed stuff, we look at Galrauk. The other thing is, I wonder, they've just done some chaos stuff. I know demons aren't particularly around, but is the greater demon of change still a two-headed lad? I feel like at some point he had two heads, but I am wrong on that one, so maybe that's not it. Because I kind of thought, well, maybe they're going to go and bring in some more chaos and bring in some, like, demon stuff. Doesn't look like it. So Galrauk is absolutely my best guess for this one. But when it comes to the old world, I don't want to say the old world is stagnated, because it's a really robust game and people seem to be absolutely loving it. But they hit this huge errata where version 1, which is this massive book, is outdated, and the game needs a bit of work. And they did a big FAQ, a big errata to kind of bring that back into line. So that's just left everybody thinking, we need a 1.5, we need a version 2, and they can see them doing a version 2, because by all accounts, the old world sounds like it's overachieved versus what they were shooting for. So a version 2 of the old world would make a huge amount of sense. Now, they've said it's 2 heads, so I would be very surprised if it was a starter set. I would be mega hype, especially as we're going all in on like fantasy rank and flank at the moment. If they were to drop version 2 of the old world, I would be a happy bear. But I think it's likely that we'll just get some kind of big Chaos Dragon, maybe Galrak, maybe just a Warrior of Chaos Dragon. And I'm very okay with that. Okay, so let's have a look at the rest of the list. So, Blood Bowl, love it. Necromunda could be very cool. Kill Team could be interesting. Warhammer the Old World could be epic. There's a few other bits here which are definitely worth touching on. Somebody in the comments made a suggestion for Legions Imperialis. Now, Legions Imperialis is epic, but for 40k. The game landed and the rules were by all just quite bad, I think. Like, you've got a unit of 20 bases of small Space Marines, and you kind of like roll for each of them, but roll in like versus your opponent each time. I may have got that wrong, but from looking at it, that's not fun for me. But Custodes, demons at a small scale would be amazing. And there's a sneaky thing here which would be really interesting, is if they went Legions Imperialis, did demons at that small scale, and then they've opened up the door for doing small scale Age of Sigmar and small scale Old World again, which would be very tantalizing. So Legions Imperialis, not really on my radar, but little Custodes and little demons would be pretty cool. Horus Heresy, I mean, one thing that's been floated around for a while and was heavily rumored at the end of last year was something along the lines of, they were like, well, Space Hulk or Battlefleet Gothic's coming back. Look, we've been talking like Battlefleet Gothic and Space Hulk could come back every year now for 6 years. And one day we're going to be right. Horus Heresy, bringing back Battlefleet Gothic into that era would work, I think. It wouldn't be the best, but it would work. So that's definitely like a real cool hope. I think what it's likely to be is just more Space Marines, which is totally fine. I'm not hugely into the Horus Heresy. I love the books because, well, everything Dan Abnett writes is just gold. But yeah, okay, that's all right. When it comes to 40k, I mean, they've just dropped the new box set, so we're going to assume this is going to be like the Wave 1 release for Orcs and Space Marines. So some new characters, a couple of new vehicles, maybe the box stuff separately. 11th edition looks quite good, but it doesn't look so different from 10th that it's got me interested. But I you know, these days, a bit of a hobby magpie. So if they do something very special with 40k, I could be sucked in. Like, that could be a thing. But the last one on this list is Age of Sigmar. Now, there's 2 things floating around in Age of Sigmar world that's been kind of loitering for a while. One is ogres. And when it comes to the video, he talks about being hungry for more. And I think ogres were what? Ogres were rumored when they did the Chaos Dwarves. So there's the ogre redesign in Age of Sigmar land that's kind of expected. And there's also the Dark Elves to come. The Forces of Malekith. I don't know what they're called in Age of Sigmar world. Age of Sigmar TM. But new Dark Elves for Age of Sigmar would be great for 2 reasons. One, Age of Sigmar has some of the best fantasy models out there. I'm not sold on the game. I've not played it, and they've got a new edition coming out next year. So if all things go well, we could be playing some Age of Sigmar next year. But the models are gorgeous. So new Dark Elves done right would be great. Now, they did a really good job with the Lumineth Realmkin, which are the High Elves, and then they stuck them all on kangaroos and stuff. I got nothing against kangaroos. I just don't want my High Elves riding them. So that was a bit of that killed that faction off for me. So I'd love to see some cool Dark Elves. I just hope they don't gimp it up some way or another. So yeah, that would be one really cool thing. The other cool thing is that massively opens up the space to take all the old Dark Elf kits. They've kind of separated them a little bit from Cities of Sigmar and then put them back into the old world, because I know they've got the Legends rules and stuff like that, but Skaven, Lizardmen, Vampire Counts, Dark Elves, I'd love to see them get back into old world properly. That would be a fantastic. So it's hilarious, but the thing I'm expecting from Age of Sigmar could mean that there's more stuff for a different game. I think it's likely to be ogres, and it could be really cool. And you know, I'm a big fan of like monstrous infantry based armies because, well, they're just so much easier to paint, right? So that could be really, really, really cool. Okay, so that is everything on the pad. And there's a lot of cool stuff for Blood Bowl and for sci-fi and for fantasy on this preview. And though, I think that makes up for the fact that it's like 37 degrees outside. I think good job Games Workshop actually swooping in and giving us some extra hype ready for the summer. So I really want to know what you guys think is coming. What's coming for Blood Bowl? What's coming for the Old World and Age of Sigmar? What are they going to do with Necromunda and all those other bits? And what are you excited to see? Because don't forget to join us on the live stream. We're going to co-stream it on Friday night. So yeah, don't forget to join us for all the fun reveals. And we'll be back soon with more wargaming content. Happy gaming.